One.
Welcome to the Daily Objective, day 119 of the war in Israel. I'm joined by James Valliant. James, how's it going?
Oh, pretty well. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Somewhat good. I follow what's going on and I follow politics in Britain. Uh, by the way, I've stayed up on election night many times in my life, different types of elections. And my favorite is actually not an election. It's the vote in 2016 on whether Britain should leave the EU or not. And this was after months of the government, led by David Cameron, campaigning, scaremongering, telling us how we can't, Britain can't survive without the EU. Um, this was a great moment when people said, "No, you're not gonna scare us into this." Now, people voted for the right thing for the wrong reasons, but still, the outcome was one that was a surprise and that I was very pleased with. And another thing I was very pleased with on the morning when actually the exit polls showed that Remain won, and then it ended up that they were wrong. And in the morning when it was clear that Britain had voted to leave the European Union, another great thing happened, which is David Cameron resigned. David Cameron was the conservative prime minister from 2010. He was to the left of Labour, moved the country to the left from where the previous Labour government left it on pretty much every economic metric. Taxes were higher for pretty much everybody, but of course, most importantly for the rich, because that's what you need to show. To show that you're on the right side of things, you need to tax the rich.
And he's
Taxes
a
were
sane
higher.
Tory, and he's a sane Tory who led a coalition government, mind you. I use
Yeah,
sane in air quotes, of course.
yeah, yeah. So the Tories had the excuse at the beginning of having to have a coalition with the Liberal Democrats. Then they didn't have the excuse, and they haven't
Right.
had it for 9 years. So, and yeah, so Britain moved. The Conservatives moved Britain to the left on everything, and culturally, of course, they didn't do anything to fight the decline. So I was very happy to see him go. Wasn't so happy with who replaced him, but still, he
Well, the
deserved.
monarch was pleased, apparently. He became Baron Baron Cameron of Chipping Norton, I believe, giving him a life title for his great achievements, leading Great Britain in the ways that you did. What he's now, of course, they can use the House of Lords to pick cabinet members from, which is interesting, given, of course, the fact that Cameron opposed the House of Lords when he was in power. But nonetheless, he's now a member of the House of Lords and foreign minister and speaking on behalf of the United Kingdom in matters of foreign policy. And what he announced the other day absolutely has me sick to my stomach. He said that Great Britain might acknowledge, maybe not now, maybe not right away, but will recognize a Palestinian state before this conflict is resolved. Even we don't have to wait for Israel. We don't have to wait for anyone else. We'll just go ahead and recognize at some point in the near future a Palestinian state. Now think about the degree of evasion and ignorance, and I have to say dishonesty, when you come to something like this. Not only is he rewarding Hamas and the Palestinian Authority for October 7th, not only is he encouraging more, he's giving them a what else can we do for you? What else can we do for Hamas and the Palestinian population in the wake of October 7th? Can we give you everything you want? Can we give you how much more can we give you? The next thing I'm waiting for him to say is Palestinians living abroad as refugees, as defined by the United Nations, have an absolute right of return to both Israel and Palestinian territories. That is the next thing I'll be waiting for him to say. Or could he possibly be so naive as to think, and now I'm going to say something that's really controversial, the Palestinian population of the West Bank and Gaza are a people unfit to govern themselves. I will say this underline it, put it in italics, the current population of Palestinians living in the relevant areas are a people that are unfit ideologically to govern themselves. It would be as though we went back in a time machine, took some Neanderthals, brought them into the 21st century, and said they have an absolute right to govern and have an equal vote with everyone else, and that their judgment would count just as much as anyone else in a democracy because of this magical pixie dust elixir called democracy and self-determination. He cannot be
Yeah.
so naive. He has to know that if in any time in the near future there is such a state recognized, that he is calling for a permanent state of war until and unless the Palestinian people recognize Israel's right to exist, until Hamas changes its charter from homicidal racism directed against Jews. Now, Palestinian authorities, they're the ones who materially support terrorists. They're the ones who cheered October 7th. There is no group today leading the Palestinians who would form a legitimate government or would produce anything other than a permanent state of war with Israel. David Cameron is calling for perpetual genocide against the Jews by recognizing any of these governments that currently exist there. What he is doing is he's acknowledging, sanctioning their right to continue their genocidal motives against Israel. I can't tell you, this is sanction of the evil. I keep surprising myself on the capacity of myself to surprise myself in how they're outdoing each other in terms of sanction of the evil. This would be not only sanction of the evil, this would be permanent warfare against the Jewish state. Full stop.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, the whole idea of self-determination is an interesting term in how it's used. There's no self there. We're talking about groups, and typically it's some sort of national or ethnic group. By the way, look up what Ayn Rand had to say about the ethnicity and how it's not a valid concept, but. Yeah, so once the group decides how it's going to govern itself, supposedly nobody else has a right to say anything. Now, again, the Palestinians, the way they want to govern themselves is one of these gangs, either the Islamist gang or the PLO fascist gang, takes over and oppresses their own people who don't really seem to mind, and plans on how to kill more Jews. So yeah, if the Palestinian people have a right to self-determination, they self-determine that they are going to kill all the Jews until there is no one left to kill, as they said, do October 7th again and again until Israel is annihilated. Now, yeah, this idea of Britain recognizing a Palestinian state. Now, I have been against the Palestinian state for a very long time, but there is a question there about the timing. Yeah, as you mentioned, you're deciding now, less than 4 months after October 7th, that now you're going to recognize a Palestinian state. What you are saying, you are sending as clear a message as possible to any would-be terrorist anywhere. Terrorism works. The more you do of it, the more we will give in, and you will get whatever it is that you are demanding. And
everything you want. Just pull off enough October 7th and we'll give you everything you want. What else can we give you for killing babies, for attacking innocent people at a rock concert? What else can we give you? How else can we reward you for this? And by the way, as Hamas continues to try and lob rockets into Israel, they haven't stopped, they haven't relented, nor has the Palestinian Authority taken back any of their praise for October 7th or stopped any of their material support for terrorists. So there is no group here. While we are talking about recognizing a Palestinian state, Lord Cameron, we're talking about the people themselves are selecting as their leaders groups that are committed to the destruction of Israel, that want permanent war with Israel until it is gone. That is what you are morally recognizing as valid. He is putting world opinion, altruism, this idea of national self-determination ahead of any real world considerations. It shows just how lost, just how disconnected from reality our current policymakers are. I know I add this in whenever even though it's not directly on topic. It has now been 5 days since 3 Americans were killed by Iran, by Iran. I'm not going to pretend it was by a proxy group or care much who is particularly responsible for it. But once more, in the systematic, coordinated attack on both Israel and the United States by Iran, Joe Biden has yet to act. Furthermore, the Biden administration has gone out of its way to sanction settlers. Now, I know they're violent. Look, I'm not defending the violent settlers on the West Bank, but to butt into Israel's perfectly valid forms of law enforcement to take care of their own criminal activity with their own people is offensive, disgusting, and the creation of a moral equivalence between the Palestinians and Israel. My president and the foreign minister of Great Britain have stabbed Israel in the back, have stabbed decency in the back, and are insisting on continued violence against Jews. That's the only way I can understand this.
So thank you, John, for the super chat. Thank you, Bonnie, for the super chat. Thanks, people, for the compliments. Actually, this is not a haircut. I was up all night thinking about David Cameron and woke up with no hair. But yeah.
No, you're looking sharp.
So,
by the way, folks, I don't mean this was a negative start here. Happy Rand's Day. On this day in 1905, the greatest philosopher of our time, Ayn Rand, was born in St. Petersburg, Russia. She's the author of Atlas Shrugged and The Fountainhead, and all kinds of philosophical works that have the capacity to change our culture for the better and to change conditions such as this, the nightmare situation that we're living in. So while it's a negative thing to be playing off of, I just want to wish everybody a happy Rand's Day. It really should be an official holiday, at least in my country, where she was the greatest writer of my time, for sure.
yeah, I think Biden is about to recognize it as an official holiday, but he's busy planning the response to Iran. I believe they're putting together the humanitarian aid package as we speak, and looking into how to do that. Yeah, I mean, we can be angry, rightfully so, about how the West is treating Israel, but we need to remember how Israel is treating itself, how America is treating itself, the killing of its own soldiers, the fact that we had to wait for the moment that soldiers are actually killed. The attempts to kill them are not enough. The attacks on the ships are not enough. Basically, nothing Iran does is enough to go to the war that's needed, which is the war that removes the Iranian regime. So yeah, I mean, the West is consistent in its weakness in the face of terrorism. And when it comes to the Palestinians, again, we've talked a lot about the Palestinian people as a society. I mean, we talk about, Iran is the real war. We have to remember, like, as a society, the Palestinians are unique. In Iran, you actually have many people trying to stand up to the government. And if we go to war with Iran, we will have help from the inside. We will not have help from the inside among the Palestinians.
Not on the West Bank and Gaza, but in Iran, there's actually hope. There actually is a constituency for a more secular, civilized world there. Among the Palestinians, not a chance. Not a chance. We have them cheering. We have look. Who are the options? People like the Palestinian Authority, Hamas, the Islamic Brotherhood. Take your pick among the leadership groups among the Palestinians. All of them are unfit to govern this, to be recognized. I don't care how big a democratic majority they would get. It is irrelevant. They would be an illegitimate, immoral government from the outset. They're not
James,
fit to govern themselves.
You are our resident expert on actual law, but I will ask you, in terms of international law, what does that mean? I mean, who are you recognizing? If you're recognizing a Palestinian state, do you have to specify who its leader is? Is it Mahmoud Abbas, the person who has a PhD in Holocaust denial from the University of Moscow during communism? Not that now it's much better. Of course, the PLO, we've spoken about this. They have this Martyrs Fund. We're part of they have this special welfare program. We're against welfare here generally, but that is a unique welfare program. Even it's
To
different from what
materially
we know in the West.
support killers and the
Yeah.
supporters of killers. They put a bounty. They materially support terrorists directly. So there is no under international law. You need some kind of organized government to recognize. Without a government, without a state, without something, and barely speaking, although Israel forcibly removed their settlers from Gaza, although the Gazans, the Palestinian people living in Gaza, have long had the power to control their own government. The first thing they did was to elect Hamas, and the other parties, the more moderate parties, are no better and no more legitimate. To think, what is David Cameron thinking when he says we're going to recognize a Palestinian state? Obviously, in his mind, it's going to be something more like the Palestinian Authority. Maybe it won't be Hamas, and maybe right now isn't the time to do it. But we won't be waiting for Israel. We won't be waiting for anyone else. We'll go ahead and recognize the Palestinian
Well,
Authority.
so he's actually talking about as soon as there's a ceasefire, and from what I understand, he's not talking about a permanent ceasefire. He's talking about the supposedly temporary ceasefire they're talking about now, which the latest report I've seen in Israeli media is that it's going to be 142 days long. I don't know what that means. Is somebody after 142 days actually going to do something? I don't know. Israel is already pretty much winding it down. It's
Right.
many of the troops have been released, and
No, so after 4 or 5 months of a ceasefire, that's enough to satisfy Lord Cameron that the Palestinian Authority would make a legitimate state. That is
I
disgusting.
mean, from my understanding, it's not going to be after. It's going to be as soon as. This could be happening, within days.
That
So
is disgusting in the extreme. That is a reward for evil. I cannot imagine a more upside down, backwards policy. Uh, it's absolutely insane. It is altruism taken to, well, it's not even altruism in this case. Really think we have to begin to realize that politicians, even nominally Tory politicians, are anti-Israel to the degree that you have to say that they actually favor groups that want to wipe out Israel. What else are they? What else are they saying? They're rewarding it. They're sanctioning it. They want the Palestinian Authority, I guess, to be recognized as a state that materially supports genocidal terrorism against Israel. That is if they don't recognize the what they're doing, sanctioning groups that want genocide, sanctioning groups that systematically kill Israelis as the violent anti-Semitism sanction that it is, then they're worse than blind. But I can't believe that someone like David Cameron, he went to Eton and Oxford, as I understand. No, someone with that brain cannot be that stupid. This is truly immoral. This is truly the sanction of evil and the rewarding of evil. This is so perverse. This is so upside down. I can only say that if Lord Cameron gets his wish, he is begging for more violence. He wants a state of permanent war. He does not want a permanent peace solution. He cannot be so naive as to believe that the Palestinians will be satisfied if they get a state, suddenly, pack up their weapons, go home, and, start creating a legitimate state. But, as I say, it's not as though the Palestinian Authority and Hamas are doing what governments should be doing at all, trying to create a peaceful, prosperous area for their people to live in. They're not legitimate states, Lord Cameron. Who the hell
yeah,
are you going to recognize?
and
Terrorists?
I have to say, I know I say this often, but I encourage people to go back and watch the episodes we did on October 7th, on October 8th, on October 9th. Um, we're not prophets. We just understand how things work. And so does Netanyahu. Netanyahu could have acted immediately, could have done a lot more within a few days from the air than Israel has done in 4 months on the ground. And with less international opposition, because the way things work are, okay, Israelis were killed, so now we're going to be on Israel's side, and then Israel responds, which means Palestinians are killed, which means now we're going to be, we're going to be on the side of whoever dies, no matter what they did to make that death happen. And yeah,
Well, no,
Israel.
Israelis can be displaced from the north because of repeated Hezbollah attacks. But whoa, don't you dare escalate this into Lebanon, Israel. Is quiet back channels, and Israel goes along with it. Israel goes along with it. America, the same damn thing. We should. I mean, I don't. Again, I'm not a prophet. I just use ideas to try and figure things out. And really, folks, ideas are our only way of figuring things out. But weeks ago, when the attacks on America began, what was it, October 17th? Shortly thereafter, I began to say there's going to be blood on Biden's hands. Now there is blood on Biden's hands. 5 days. See, why Gaza City wasn't rubble by October 9th or 10th, I do not know. Why Iran directly was not attacked on October 18th or 19th, I do not know. But now we're looking at 5 days after Americans are killed. Biden, oh yeah, we're going to do something. We're going to do something. Still hasn't happened. It is nothing but reward for evil. It is nothing but sanction for killing. And this war will continue, and Israelis and Americans will continue to die according to the explicit policy of Mr. Netanyahu, Mr. Biden, and Lord Cameron. If getting their way means more Israelis and more Americans die, promise.
Thank you, Christian, for the super chat. Christian says the Palestinians had a good nation builder with Salam Fayyad, but he was unpopular, considered an American puppet. The Neanderthals want war, not nation building. I completely agree with the last sentence. Look, if somebody makes it to that level, in the Palestinian Authority where he is prime minister, he might be not as bad as the previous one, but no, I don't think anybody. Again, you can't even if you had a good leader for the Palestinians, such a leader would not be accepted. Yeah, as you say, it goes against the culture. It goes against the will of the people, so to speak. The people don't want peace. They, there's complete consensus among the Palestinians. I saw a survey about the uh, what do you call it? The Martyrs Fund. This thing that you pay people who are in prison or who committed or were killed committing terrorist atrocities against Israelis, and 91% of Palestinians support it. So
91. This
yeah,
is a population unfit to govern itself. If, for example, someone had said to me in 1955, most of the people in West Germany, some 3/4 to 90%, actively still support Nazism, I would not support democracy in West Germany. It would not have been time. That's what we're looking at here. We're looking at a situation in which the vast majority of the population overtly supports October 7th and will do it again and again and again if given power. And that's what Lord Cameron is suggesting, giving such people power to do it again and again and again, along with, perhaps more importantly, the moral sanction of Western countries like Great Britain and the United States.
yeah.
This
The examples of World War II are always good. Germany and especially Japan, but nobody came to Japan and said, you know what, you tell us what you want to do, what you want to be. No, you attacked
No,
America.
America insisted on a constitution with a representative democracy, freedom of speech, freedom of religion, due process rights in court, and we weren't going to leave until they accepted the kind of government that we wanted them to adopt.
Yeah, and the irony here is people are talking about democracy, in the Palestinian territory, the so-called Palestinian territories of Judea and Samaria on the West Bank and the Gaza Strip, and we've already been there. This was done, and it wasn't that long ago. I know 20 years is not a short period of time, but it's not that long ago that, again, we talk about how Hamas won that. It was Hamas and Fatah. It was both terrorist organizations getting all the votes. So yeah, the
When some
Palestinians.
lesser violent ones too. I mean, but the point is, all the votes cast. I mean, I can't even. There was no moderate party in my sense. There was no non-violent party in my sense. All the votes cast were cast for either terrorism a little lighter, terrorism a little harder, or Hamas. That's it.
Yeah, yeah. There are some differences among Palestinians. There's one issue on which everybody's united, which is we need to kill all the Jews and free Palestine from the river to the sea, as the genocidal call in the West goes. So and again, back to the main point of uh, by saying, okay, we will now that you have committed the worst atrocities we have ever seen from you people, now is the time when we will recognize you as a state. There is no clearer statement, that I mean, there are some competitors for clearer statements, like the U.S. being attacked and then saying we don't want escalation, or the U.S. saying here's a red line and then not actually following through. But yeah, this is
Consider
we.
how much more evil this is David Cameron's statement is than the Oslo Accords were. If the Oslo Accords were a disgusting, disgusting attempt at peace with monsters, at least it had a framework that will have the Palestinians eventually recognizing Israel's right to exist. Cameron isn't even requiring that. He says he's going to go ahead, even without the framework that was laid out in the Oslo nightmare. I'll call it the Oslo nightmare. He won't even go that far. He'll recognize the Palestinians, even as they continue to say, we will wipe out Israel to the last man, woman, and child. Okay. And in the wake of this, what a huge reward, giving them everything they want, in effect, because of October 7th.
Yeah, and Oslo is important.
Unbelievable.
Oslo is important to mention here also in the context of now we have 30 years of post Oslo, the results of Oslo. So we've already seen what happens when Israel makes concessions, encourages the Palestinians to govern themselves, stands back while they do so. What happens is they have more time, more resources, and more just territory that they control from which to plan how to kill more Jews. And that's what they've been doing. And they've been doing it successfully. And apparently David Cameron thinks not successfully enough, because again,
Right.
there is no other message that we can read from
Well, either David Cameron is so mentally gone, disconnected from reality, that he is unfit to be a cabinet minister for the United Kingdom, or he wants a lot more Jewish people dead. And those are really the only two possibilities I can see here. Either, and maybe he doesn't admit it to himself, maybe it's on a subconscious level, but either Lord Cameron wants a lot more Jewish people dead, a lot more Jewish people dead, or he is mentally unfit to serve as a foreign minister for any nation.
All right, we are out of time. I see Cargo Crew saying the second best thing about this podcast is the time it airs in my geography. Perfect. Well, now that I am on James Valliant's time zone, this is practically the middle of the night, so I don't know how you do it and how Mark does it and how people here watch us live, but I do appreciate it. And
because we are committed to what you do, Razi. We're committed to Ayn Rand Center UK's mission. You are doing something so noble, and especially in the last couple of months, 3 or 4 months, you have been doing something so noble and so important. More than that, you're creating an international community of serious students of objectivism. Ladies and gentlemen, if you agree with me that this is a heroic endeavor, that this is an important thing to do, that you're getting a perspective here that you won't get anywhere else, I urge you to pay value for value and become a paid subscriber at whatever level you can afford and you're comfortable with to the Ayn Rand Center UK. We do important work here.
I appreciate that, James. And one good thing to do after you talk about somebody like David Cameron first thing in the morning is to calm down. So I'm gonna calm down and talk about my favorite organization in the world, UNRWA, in just a minute.
Get back to UNRWA.
Yeah. But hey, that's the times we live in, and I think there's going to be a somewhat comedic aspect to the disgusting stuff we're going to talk about in.
Well, if you can't cry, you should you know what I mean? You got to let it out somehow. And sometimes I have the choice of either laughing or crying, and sometimes laughing is the better alternative psychologically.
Well, we'll try to do both on the reality show, which starts in about a minute. Thank you, James. We'll be back with the Daily Objective tomorrow, 5:30 p.m. UK time, 12:30 Eastern. I don't know why I'm confused just by being in a different time zone, but thanks, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye.